And good afternoon. Welcome to Jeffco Patriot Radio. It's just after high noon in the heartland here on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. It is Sunday, May 17th, 2026, halfway through the most beautiful month of May. And I say that, Billy Crow. Well, first of all, welcome back to the program. Where you been?
I know. I've been all over the place doing constituent work, man.
I know what you've been doing. You've been getting a whole home makeover. Look at you. You look fantastic.
I've got my ears lowered a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I did.
You're getting in your fighting weight for election year, right?
Well, it shouldn't be my election year, but here we are in the thick of it, aren't we?
Yes, we are indeed. We'll get into some of that later. I do want to wish, before I forget, which I never should, to wish my lovely younger daughter, Abby, a very happy birthday this week.
Oh, fantastic. How old is Abby?
She will be 17.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Yep.
My oldest daughter, Katie, will be 21.
Hey.
I'm not sure where those 2 decades went.
Yeah.
She's in June. We have a ton of birthdays in and around our family, friend group, and such and so forth. So my birthday, of course, a national holiday this year, as it should be every year. Memorial Day.
Yeah.
May 25th.
Yeah.
Also, the birthday of my producer, Joey V.
Very cool. Very cool.
So we got the 25th. One of my best friends who was in my weddings. We've known each other for decades. He is the day. So I'm horrible with dates. My wife would know this immediately if she was standing here, and she'd be slapping me upside the head, as I deserve most times. Let's see. John is like right before me. My brother-in-law is right after me. My daughter is the 20th. I'm the 25th. Joey is the 25th. And we just have lots of celebrating in May and June.
Yeah. Busy time of year. Busy time of year.
Indeed. It is a busy time of year. There are a ton of events going on in Jefferson County this coming weekend, next weekend, and some others as well. We're going to get to those in a second. The Missouri legislature, Billy, once again, our freedoms, our liberties, and our pocketbooks are once again safe and secure because the legislature adjourned on Friday at 6 p.m.
Exciting. Exciting. It's all over.
God bless America. Hallelujah. For folks who don't know, I think many of you do. Yes, I am blessed with having my golden pipes here that allow me to be on the air every day, Monday through Friday, on the Tim Jones and Chris Harp Show here at News Talk STL. We do a couple weekend shows, Jeffco Patriot Radio.
That's right.
State Freedom Caucus Unfiltered. And I also do a ton of state government affairs and political consulting. Some of my best friends on Facebook and Twitter, I say that, euphemistically.
Yeah.
My friends, my fan club.
That's right.
Yeah, my troll fan club. Billy, I've been accused of running the state of Missouri, the entire state.
Well, you know what? You're doing a damn good job.
Yeah,
damn good job.
Governor Kehoe and I. Yes,
yeah.
Well, I go to Jefferson City every week during the legislative session, and Jeff City in January, not the nicest place on the planet. You know?
Yeah.
Our Capitol is absolutely gorgeous.
Sure.
The area around the Capitol, High Street and all that, wonderful. But man, when that wind comes whipping across the plain in dark, dreary brown and gray Missouri, and you're in mid Missouri, it's not the most spectacular place to be. Now, by the time we're about ready to leave, God has a sense of humor. May is fantastic,
right?
But we don't always spend the whole month there. But the legislative session's over. I've been going up to Jeff City every week during the session, so I'm very happy not to have to make that trip again. Now we get into conference season and so on and so forth. But Billy, the legislature, I would give them, on the whole, I'll be an easy grader. I'll be a gentle. I'll give them a B.
A B,
barely a B.
Well, maybe
a B minus.
They got some things across the line.
They did,
right?
And I have a list of those things.
Yeah. Now, before we get into that, we're talking about, thank goodness, our liberties and our pocketbooks are always are protected again because they're not in session. But I just want to say I am so glad that this particular session is over, because one particular legislature for Jefferson County who doesn't live in Jefferson County will no longer be with us
at the Senate. The junior senator from the 5th, I heard her called?
Yeah, something like that.
It wasn't my word. Somebody else told me that, and I thought that was kind of funny.
Now, as a parting gift to Jefferson County, she put a giant turd in the punch bowl.
She did?
She did. She attached an amendment to a bill that is for an airport in St. Joe. And she attached an amendment that is all about regulating how Jefferson County and its municipalities can or cannot annex. Now, this is like her second go around at this. She tried to do it by itself.
So the bill, this is the problem with, and look, I do think the Supreme Court of the state of Missouri sometimes decides whether a bill has too many subjects for their liking, depending on whether it is a more, let's just say it, more conservative leaning bill or a more liberal leaning bill. But this sounds like a prime example of maybe two subjects that shouldn't actually be mixed. So you're telling me that the underlying bill, piece of legislation, is for something involving an airport
in St. Joe.
St. Joe, which is in northwest Missouri.
That is right.
And the senator from Jefferson County,
she's from Jefferson
Mary
County.
Elizabeth Coleman, put an amendment
That's right.
on this bill to do what regarding annexation in
to regulate Jefferson annexation for municipalities in Jefferson County. Hold on, I'm going to pull this up here. I'm going to read it to you.
So it's annexation legislation relating to Jefferson County. Now, is this a controversial piece of legislation for those of you in Jefferson County?
Well, here's kind of the deal when it comes to it, okay? I think there's problems when it comes to annexation in Jefferson County. Like, it needs to be contiguous, right? There's some municipalities that annexed these little islands, right? And then there's also, like, if the county puts an infrastructure and then you come in and annex it, you just got all the infrastructure for free. So I think there needs to be some, reparations, if you will, if the county is using their tax dollars to put in sidewalks and stormwater, and then the city takes it over.
Otherwise it's a windfall.
That's right. However, Mary Elizabeth hasn't talked to any of us at the. Maybe she talked to one or two, but she hasn't talked to county executive. She didn't talk to us, council members, if it was a problem. Many of the cities that are in the county have reached out to me, and the mayor is saying, what is going on here? She didn't talk to us about it. And now sometimes people will say, well, it's not necessarily for your county, but it's within these parameters, right? They like to couch it in certain parameters.
Well, you can't specifically say the county because then it becomes a special law. You have to define it in a certain way.
You ready for this?
Yes.
The bill provides for that any city, town, or village in Jefferson County.
Actually named in this one. A lot of times they'll say a county with a population of between this number and that number.
But it got so personal. She says in the county of Jefferson, in Jefferson County. So this is just for us. And again, it's not something that
Do we know why this was proposed? Like what the point of it was?
Well, I do understand that there are some folks that are worried about particularly some cities such as Pevely that talk about wanting to annex all the way up to Arnold. But if it's done right and the county is compensated for the infrastructure that they put in, I don't see the problem with it. But now you've got a state legislator on her way out the door, again, who doesn't live in Jefferson County, trying to dictate what people in Jefferson County can do long after she's gone. And it's just an embarrassment from a conservative perspective.
Interesting indeed. Well, I wish I could say that those things never happen, but they seem to happen all the time. And what I was warning the people the people that know I have some institutional memory.
That's right.
Of being in and around the General Assembly of the state of Missouri, going back to 2007. I guess that makes me an old. I prefer to say wiser and more knowledgeable. The institutional memory I have, I tell them in the last, especially week of session, especially the last 48 to 72 hours of session, please be aware of amendments that are being dropped.
That's
when
right.
Things are frenetic and frantic and people are hurrying to get stuff done. And the biggest signal you can know that something may be afoot is when you have a bill come across and someone says, oh, this is just a clarifying amendment. We're just cleaning up some language here. And everybody, and all of a sudden, and I can give you example after example of really weird, wacky things happening in those final days.
Now, this is passed. It's sitting on the governor's desk.
It's going to take a few days for the dust to settle.
Yeah.
To see if there was any other strange things that happened.
And here's the thing. All of us from Jefferson County can reach out to the governor and ask him to veto the bill, but that hurts St. Joseph.
It hurts the other components of the bill.
That's right. And of course, that's why they stick it in there.
And that's why bills should be more narrowly tailored.
Agreed. Now that we've talked about that, I've got that off my chest. Let's talk about some good things.
Some positive things. Well, for the first time in forever, as we head into difficult financial straits, not in the Strait of Hormuz, but the Straits of the Strait of Missouri, we have cut the budget. The legislature cut the budget this year.
What?
They pulled back on tax on that is funded by taxpayers. Let's call
cutting
government
tax spending is racist. Tim, how do we do that?
That's right. I guess we learned that.
Oh, geez.
$4 billion plus
wow.
of less spending this year than the year before. And many would say, well, we had to, but at least they did it.
That's right.
At least they followed up and did it. Because let me tell you what's happening. All that ARPA money, in layman's terms, the Biden bucks and the COVID cash that were sent out in the trillions across the country over the last 6-7 years, it's gone. It's dried up.
And now we're jonesing for more.
And if state governments were stupid enough, which I don't think Missouri generally was, but if they were stupid enough to create new programs that have to be funded in the future versus one-time spending on like capital improvement projects, You're now trying to figure out how to patch all these budget holes, right? You know all about this, being on a county council. And so, yes, so we have properly dialed back the spending. That was largely because State Senator Lincoln Huff was no longer the budget chair. This is like Murderer's Row this week we're talking about. And that was because Senate President Cindy O'Loughlin removed him from that position because he wasn't doing a very good job.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we get a new budget chairman who has a little bit more fiscal sense, Rusty Black. And in his first year as budget chairman, he agrees with the House that, yes, we should tighten our belts. It's not our money. It's the taxpayers' money. We don't have it to spend. And so let's start dialing that back. So that is probably the biggest story of the session. Bill,
yeah,
for the
that's
first time
huge.
forever, $4 billion less dollars in taxpayer-funded government spending. We also have the income tax proposal plan that the voters will vote on. I'm hearing it may be August. It could be November, but it may be August. And the governor will decide that in short order before the end of this month. Several public safety bills were passed, mainly courtesy of Missouri Freedom Caucus Chairman Nick Schroer, the senator from one of the senators from St. Charles. U.S. law for U.S. courts.
How about
Basically,
that? A little common sense.
We're not going to have Sharia. People go, oh, we don't have Sharia. Have you checked the news lately as what's going on in Minnesota and Michigan, where they're creating these enclaves and saying, your kind, as in Americans, aren't welcome here, you know? And so this is a preemptive strike. Another Nick Schroer bill. Born Alive, the Born Alive Act made it across the finish line.
Fantastic.
Representative Holly Jones, my state representative, my sister from another mother, she championed that bill all the way through the process. Another Freedom Caucus member. She also accomplished 2 huge planks of her Make Missouri Healthy Again agenda. Ivermectin will be available over the counter. And food as medicine will be deployed within our Medicaid program. While we're spending money on entitlements and social welfare, how about making sure that people aren't eating candy bars and drinking soda pop?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you incentivize that, I mean, that's going to get rid of so many more complicated. I mean, well, we can talk about that forever. That's a whole other show.
A couple things left on the cutting room floor, Billy.
Yeah.
And when people say, oh, why haven't you Republicans gotten everything straightened out in the state of Missouri? Because we haven't been Republican enough. And I can prove the point. The Tabor bill, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, passed out of the House in February, sat in the Senate for 3 months, and then died on Friday. The REINS Act, to rein in the regulatory state, passed out of the House in early March. Same fate. The Medicaid work requirements bill, passed out of the House in February. Same fate. Court reform, the list goes on and on and on. These are not just conservative, not just Republican. I think these are common sense priorities that for whatever reason, Senate leadership couldn't find the time or the effort to carry across the finish line. So we'll go back and we'll do them again next year.
Well, it's just kind of like we talked about medicine. The medicine tries to keeps you sick, so you keep coming back for more. They can't fulfill all the campaign promises, or you won't elect them back, will they?
Indeed. Bill, you want to tell us about... we got a couple minutes left here in this first segment. How about a couple of events going on in Jefferson County?
Yeah, we're pretty excited. We got the Northwest Jefferson County Chamber of Commerce Memorial Parade. That's next Saturday, May 23rd. They're on the High Ridge Boulevard. And I tell you what, the county's done such a great job. Councilman Brian Haskins has this nice little pocket park that's there, so you can be able to enjoy all that. The parade starts at 10 a.m. It starts at the Fellowship of Baptist Church there at 2735 High Ridge Boulevard, and it ends at Jefferson County Library there at Highway PP. Then we're going to have on June 6th, the one, the only Strawberry Festival in Kimmswick.
World famous.
That's right. June 6th and 7th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to have over 125 vendors, 33 food trucks. There's going to be live music going on through the whole time. It's absolutely free except for parking. You have to pay for parking, and that's going to be available at the Windsor High School and the K Highway lot. And they're going to have shuttle buses that run every 8 to 10 minutes and also some additional parking at the city ball fields. So the roads are going to close at 8 a.m. for the vendor setup, but make sure you don't try to drive down to Kimmswick. Make sure you drive to the ball fields or you drive to the Windsor High School parking lot, and there will be shuttles there, because if you try to drive all the way down to Kimmswick, you won't make it. And lastly, the Jefferson County Rodeo is coming up in Hillsborough June 12th and 13th at the Jefferson County Fairgrounds. There'll be live music, mechanical bulls, fan of the night belt buckles, kitty corral, and a boot raffle. You can find more information about that at jeffersoncountyfair.net.
Fantastic. Always great stuff coming up in Jefferson County. Coming up on the show today, we've got 2 awesome guests, 2 jam-packed segments. You're not going to want to miss them. incoming Festus City Administrator. Does he know what he's getting himself into? Ben, he'll join us next, followed by Larry Behrens, Communications Director for Power the Future, an awesome group that promotes American energy and the American energy worker. Who's really funding this AI, tech, and data center opposition? Billy, I think our guest may be shocked and chagrined to learn the truth.
I'm excited.
All of that straight ahead on this weekend's edition of Jeffco Patriot Radio, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Sorry.
Hey Jeffco, this is Jim Avery from Avery Injury Law. We're personal injury attorneys that specialize in car wrecks, dog bites, semi-truck crashes, or really anything that happens that's not your fault that results in an injury. At Avery Injury Law, you can trust us to help you when you have to fight with the insurance companies. Don't battle them alone. Choose your friend, Jim Avery from Avery Injury Law. I'm not afraid of insurance companies. Let me fight them for you. Contact us at 314-549-5600 or averyinjurylaw.com.
Welcome back to Jeffco Patriot Radio, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. Thanks for listening to us this afternoon. If you ever missed the program, want to catch us at a later time or date, there are a multitude of ways to do that. First of all, every single radio product here at News Talk STL is podcasted. You can find every single one of our shows, whether they run during the week or on the weekends, wherever you obtain your podcasts. So you can look us up, Jeffco Patriot Radio. We also have a fantastic Facebook page, don't we, Billy?
Oh, we do. And like you said in the previous segment, we've got lots of fans.
We do.
Lots of friends and fans on there that love to tell us how we're wrong.
That's right, indeed. And you know what? That just means they're watching.
They are.
Yeah,
they
and,
are.
And apparently they can't turn away.
Which, you know.
Who could from this magnificence?
That's right.
Hey, welcome to Sunday, May 17th edition of Jeffco Patriot Radio here in the year of our Lord 2026. Cannot believe it's already past mid-May. I think the rest of the kids who are still in school get out of school this week, and all the summer madness, mayhem, and fun begins. Billy, we've got a great guest joining us this afternoon who everybody's going to want to get to know. We have a brand new incoming city administrator for the city of Festus. Have we talked about Festus at all this year?
A little bit, once or twice.
I'm trying to remember if we have or not.
And
maybe.
to be fair,
rings a bell.
Since we've started the show, this is their second city administrator.
It is. Indeed.
So now, to be fair, the last city administrator was already, I think, on the direction of taking another job before all the data center stuff hit the proverbial fan. So I don't think he left town because of that. Just was a happy little coincidence, I think.
Indeed.
But we have new incoming. I guess he hasn't necessarily started yet. City Administrator Ben DeClue. Pretty excited to have him on. A local kid, just like myself, working for making his community better. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So like I said, you are not just someone that is coming in to tell us how to run our communities. You have lived here before. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your past.
Sure. So I grew up in Jefferson County, went to Crystal City High School. My parents still live in the area. My sister still lives in the area and is a teacher in the area. You know, I had a tremendous childhood experience in Festus and Crystal City. Being able to walk down to Festus Main Street as a kid to the comic book shop or the card shop. You know, there was the Main Street Cafe. And those were formative experiences for me. And so for me, the dream was always to get back to Jefferson County, to Festus or Crystal City, and to be able to work for the people there. I'm really excited to be back.
You know, you mentioned to me that your mother was a teacher at Hillsborough, and I went to Hillsborough. And then I was like, oh, what did she teach? And you said, oh, she taught the gifted and talented education, the gifted students. I said, that is why I never knew her.
I knew a joke was coming. Yeah.
That is why I never met her.
That's fantastic. Ben, you have been in and around, you've been working in and around local governments, from what I understand, for most of your career. And when I first ran for city council in my hometown of Eureka many moons ago, one of my buddies, who was one of my best supporters, he's a great American. He's a retired colonel, U.S. Army. He was a Ranger. And so just an awesome individual. And he said, do you know what you're getting yourself into, boy? He said, it's going to be every single day. It's going to be hogs, dogs, and fences, meaning that, you know, you're working for local government. So you're always, and you're living in it as well, right? What is it about local government? What, in all seriousness, what draws you to it? Why do you love working in that type of public sector service?
I think it's the most direct form of public service. It's one where you can actually see and make measurable improvements in the lives of your friends and neighbors. It's not some esoteric thing. You're not passing a several $billion state budget that, maybe you'll see a bit of a highway named after you someday. You're providing, community centers, you're providing streets, you're providing water, sewer service. Really, that's the best part about local government is it can provide everything. And that's exciting. This kind of position makes you a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I've really taken that to heart. And I've been able to learn about just all sorts of things in my career, from electric utility management to water utility management, parks, recreation. And Tim, I'll tell you one thing you forgot to mention, stormwater.
Yes.
I think because maybe replace hogs these days. That's correct. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. So for folks that may not understand like what you do, because there's a mayor, right? And people think, oh, the mayor runs the city, but that's not necessarily so, right? The mayor doesn't necessarily run the day-to-day activity. So tell us a little bit what it means to be a city administrator.
Sure. So, back in essentially the early 1900s, 1920s or so, municipal government had evolved to a point where it was determined that it would be beneficial to bring in a professional, and at that time it was generally an engineer, to manage the day-to-day affairs of a government, because it had gotten a little too complicated all the way back then for just anybody trying to, also run their own shop, run their own business, go to work every day, to really be able to carry that water. And so they looked to professionals to bring them in to help manage those day-to-day affairs. And what you have now today is the professional city administrator or city manager. In Festus's case, it's a city administrator. So you, of course, elect a mayor and a city council. And the mayor is generally in charge of the city in the sense that in an administrator form, the administrator is a report to the mayor. The mayor supervises the actions of the administrator. And then the council, in conjunction with the mayor, they set policy. So they set the rules of the game by which everybody plays. And then it's my job essentially to see that those rules are enforced and followed through the community. And I do that in part by working with the police department or the building and codes department. And I, again, generally make sure that assuming a law is properly passed or an ordinance is properly passed, that it's followed. And so I take my direction from the mayor and the council. I, of course, have, autonomy. But when they say this is the policy of the city, this is the direction we are going, it's my job to figure out how we're going to get to where they want to go. And similarly, if they say pump the brakes, we're going in a different direction. It's my job to determine, okay, how do we stop this and how do we go in that other direction?
No, I think that's a very interesting point. You talk about the policy of the city, and you're assuming in that statement an alignment of the council and the mayor. And so as we saw in Festus, and I think last year we saw in Arnold, there were these elections that were these change elections where, particularly in Festus's case, you still have the same mayor, but a new council that is very opposed to what the mayor's policies have been. So when there is that pushback of the council at odds with the mayor, where do you see your role lying in that? Because I think a lot of city administrators like to say like, oh, well, I'm not political, but it kind of can turn political over there, can't it?
It can. So the position, you're not supposed to engage in the active politics, but you have to be political, as you noted. You have to have an ear for what's going on in the community. And obviously the council as a body ultimately can pass ordinances over the objection of the mayor. And if they do so, then I'm directed by the law of the city to follow that path. One of the interesting challenges in any city and being an administrator is navigating those waters and ensuring that good communication happens between all the different council members and the mayor and the community. And so I view myself as sort of at that linchpin between the elected officials, the staff, and the community. And it's sort of an interesting three-way configuration. And I'm at the nexus of all of that. And so if I'm doing my job, the community is going to know what's going on. The city council and the mayor are going to know the concerns of the community, and staff's going to understand both what the community is saying, what our elected officials are saying, and the direction that we need to be going.
You have to implement the policy positions of the city writ large, right?
That's correct.
But maybe easier said than done because of all the different factors and forces you were just describing.
That's right.
Mayor, city council, staff, and all the different departments.
Yeah. There's always competing interests, and obviously there's competing interests even within staff for resources and what different departments think should be the priority of the city. So really, I'm a clearinghouse for all of that. It's my job to to analyze, to make recommendations to the mayor and the city council. And then, as I said, to follow through on whatever direction they decide to take.
So obviously a lot of the discussion or debate around the county has been around Festus has been around growth and development, as the city
and Billy, the county as a whole.
Well, you're right. The county as a whole, right? Yeah, absolutely.
But Festus has been the latest flashpoint.
It is a flashpoint.
Kind of defining that.
It is. And so like as a city administrator, obviously growth and development is good for a community. It helps grow budgets and keep the roads paved and all of that. What do you see your approach in that of like trying to balance growth and development with concerns about, hey, I like my neighbor's tree?
Yeah, I mean, those get challenging. Obviously, you have the rights of a developer and a property owner, and you have the rights then of the people that are adjacent to them and their inherent property rights. And it's difficult to balance those out. Discussions of growth and controversy over growth are nothing new in Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's one of the big reasons that the voters switched from a commission form to the charter form. I remember being at the polls and watching people collect those signatures and talking to them. And primarily their issues were they wanted much stronger control over planning and zoning and the development of the county. And so, here we are again with those same issues. It's a joke, a time-honored tradition in Jefferson County to have issues with growth. But, if it's done properly and responsibly, it can be beneficial for all parties. I think it's important to hear from everybody. It's important to, again, ensure that everybody's rights are evaluated and protected in that process.
You talk about like the growth in Jefferson County and all of that, like in this time-honored tradition, in the last, I think, what was it, last 10 years, like our growth has been like 1% less than inflation. When you've got St. Louis County that is a complete dumpster fire going down the toilet and their growth year-over-year.
Except for Eureka.
Well, that's only because we've allowed part of you into Jefferson County.
We are now part of Northern Jefferson County.
Right. That's right. Since you got in, you're married in the family now. You're okay,
and you're better off for it now.
That's right. But I mean, they still have a 9% growth, right? And so, this idea of hatred of development and being this time-honored tradition, or fear of development being a time-honored tradition of Jefferson County, it's really starting to get out of control. Tim, you were going to say something before I cut you off there.
No, not at all. That was a great point that you made. Absolutely. And it kind of goes to the other question I was going to ask Ben, and it's that, look, I mean, if you're blessed enough or successful enough to have a 100-acre parcel of land that you can live on and have maybe 2 neighbors and not have to deal with much, that's great. That comes with pros and cons, right? But if you choose to live in a city, everybody is an individual and has individual concerns, but if you choose to live in a municipality, you also have to realize that you have neighbors and then they have rights, and then the city has a responsibility to make sure it's taking care. It's got to balance a lot of interests as far as growth and development and its future as well, right? And so, the thing I ran into on my city council was just every time a new idea came, it didn't matter what it was, and I've told the famous story of the lavender farm many times on this show, the NIMBYism sometimes gets out of control.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as you said, the city has a responsibility to continue to develop and to, administer programs, and that might be replacing your streets, replacing the pipes that bring you water, the pipes that take away your sewage, and that has to be paid for somehow. And so I think most people would say, hey, I don't want to pay any more in taxes. Well, okay. Then that generally means that a city needs to find certain responsible ways to develop in order to broaden that tax base and to bring more money in to keep up with those infrastructure replacements. And so it's a difficult balance, because I think you frequently see in this world, again, people say, no new taxes. Well, okay, we'll find development. Yeah, that's great. And then you get a development and it's, well, not that development. It becomes difficult. Tim, as you pointed out, if everybody that wanted to could live on 100 acres and not ever have to see their neighbor, except maybe when they drive to get gas for their tractor or their car, God bless them.
Maybe that's
I wish
Greenland.
it was there for
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so. But as you said, in the city, it's different. And so you do have to account for your neighbors, and you have to account for, the long term.
Everybody always says, hey, I don't want that in my backyard. And I say, it'll never be in your backyard. You want to know why? Because your backyard ends where your neighbor's real estate taxes start. So if you're not paying tax on it, it's not yours to begin with.
Well stated, Billy Crow. Well, Ben, we wish you all the best. It seems like you have
Thank you.
the expertise, the know-how, the temperament for a position like this. So thank you so much for coming and chatting with us. We'd love to have you back again soon sometime.
Well, I appreciate it. I'd love to be back on after I've settled in a little bit and we can catch back up.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Indeed.
coming on, sir.
Thank you.
That is Ben DeClue. He is the incoming city administrator for the city of Festus. When we come back, what's behind all this data center, AI, American tech ingenuity, revolution, and need? What's behind the opposition to all of that? Larry Behrens from Power of the Future will tell us. They got a brand new report out, and you may be surprised at some of the findings. We'll dig deep into that and more when we return on what is a great episode this week, as it always is, of Jeffco Patriot Radio, 1019, 94.1 News Talk, STL.
Want to do it again.
We'll have to do it again sometime. So we're going to get into it here. We're going to do our ratings. We're going to rate this food. We're going to rate the environment and the service. We'll start with food, and I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, that's brutal. No, the food was fantastic. I'm going to, listen, I don't have to do this over and over again like you do, so I don't have to be careful about my ratings. I'm giving that a 10. It was phenomenal.
10.
I come back here all the time.
I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my
Welcome back to our final segment. Last but not least at all, because we have a very interesting segment for you to wrap up this weekend's edition of Jeffco Patriot Radio. You can find us, of course, 1019, 94.1 on your terrestrial dial, your FM transmitter. You can download our app. News Talk STL has an app. It's good for iPhone or that weird Android thing that people use or whatever you may have. Download that and your phone becomes your radio. Carry us with you halfway. I've listened to News Talk STL halfway around the world when I've been traveling. It's really
Yeah, and we've listened to you from halfway around
you have,
the world.
you have. Podcasts are available wherever you find podcasts and so much more.
Hey, before we get into that, we always
yes.
talk about the wonderful programming we have all week, and they can catch you every evening from 4 to 6,
Yes.
right? But this week, Friday,
Hostile takeover.
they'll be able to catch me on Mike Ferguson in the morning from 6 to 9. So make sure you listen Friday. I'll be on live.
And you might be filling in for Chris or I or both of us in the near future as well, I think. Maybe.
Bring it. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Indeed.
No one's reached out to me yet, but have your people reach out to me.
My people will call your people. One of my people here in the studio today is a very good old-time friend of mine. His name's Larry Behrens. He is the Director of Communications of Power the Future. And Larry, before people accuse me of being your corporate shill, I'm not. I'd be happy to be so, but I do not work for Power the Future. I do work for a lot of great organizations Larry's familiar with, like Americans for Tax Reform and ALEC. They're very interested, like your organization is, in making sure in all of these very conservative, common sense groups like Power of the Future, like the groups I work for, very concerned about America leading the American AI and tech boom, right?
Absolutely. And, when they use the personal attacks against you, that's good because you know that they can't argue with any of your points. And so, absolutely. AI is the dominant technology that is going to be essential to our lives probably for the next 30, 40 years, your grandchildren and maybe even their children. And it is something that is akin to the nuclear bomb. It is something that is akin to the space race. It is akin to the United States needing to lead on these technologies because if we don't, others will. And so we absolutely cannot cede this space to anyone else.
And Larry, as you just mentioned, this is another industrial revolution, right? It's more on the tech side of the coin. But just like all of those revolutions, I'm sure were very scary to the people of those times, the workers of those times, the systems of those times, right? When Henry Ford invented the assembly line, people were incensed at him, right? They were like, oh, what are the workers going to do now? Well, the workers found different components and things to work in. But what if we had said, nah, we're not going to do the assembly line thing. That sounds kind of scary. We'll have to build giant factories that will have smokestacks, and they're going to use a lot of energy, and they're probably going to use a lot of water. So we're not going to do that. We'll let the third world developing nations do that. We wouldn't be the superpower we are here today if we didn't always find a way as Americans to lead in all those previous industrial revolutions, right?
Absolutely. And you make such a great point. If we want to sit out the things that were going to be important globally, we could just, I guess, decide to become Europe. But the fact of the matter is, America has always led the way and said, we are going to be the forethinkers, the innovators on what is important, and the world is going to be speaking our language and our culture when we are doing the things that need to be done to keep us at top of the first world nation that we are. And AI is definitely in that. And I know folks think that it's a whole lot of, funny videos, and it's a whole lot of making my pictures look a little bit better and so forth. And I'm not going to cast that aside. That is part of it. But we're talking things that are like innovation when it comes to defense. We're talking things when it comes to innovation of American intelligence. It comes innovation to medicine and any number of things that are that we can't even fathom right now that are going to happen. Very much your point of the Industrial Revolution is the exact right one. You don't know what it looks like at the end, but you don't want to be sitting there as the world passes you by. So this Luddite argument that we sometimes see against AI, look it up, kids, Luddite, that you'll see is something that is trying to hold us back. And you have to then ask yourself, why? Why would someone be invested in holding America back?
Tim brought up a great point of talking about the cars, because you can look at newspaper articles from the 19-teens and 20s, and these long, lengthy articles about how terrible and dirty these new things are, and how loud they are, and how they hurt the environment, and people will get run over by them. It's very similar arguments to what we're hearing about people talking about data centers, where there's these arbitrary things about personal damage or loud noises, or what I heard, smog, whatever that is, right? But when you looked at those in the newspapers in the 19-teens and 20s, what you see is they were actually basically paid propaganda from horse feed manufacturers, from horse buggy manufacturers, trying to stop the car from overtaking them. Is there a similar kind of relation to this blowback we're seeing in today's anti-data center culture?
We believe so, absolutely. And we're grateful that you all have been discussing our report. We put out this report, and just so folks know how we got our hands on it, it's public information that anyone could look at. We looked at these groups that have been showing up opposing data centers, and we looked at their if they're nonprofits, they have to disclose where they're getting their money from.
It follows with the IRS every year.
Correct. And we've found oh my goodness, it seems to be a lot of billionaire donations, and then not so few foreign billionaire donations. And so you have people who are billionaires out of the country who could be invested in the United States not winning the AI race. And now they are taking on this charge of saying, once again, it's all environment, it's all climate, it's all NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And this is not to cast aside. If people have questions about what's going on in their county, good. They should have questions and they should scrutinize these things. However, when someone comes from out of your county, out of your state, and starts to have all these prepaid talking points and these prepaid materials, and has, suggested language for any city council or county commission or any other government body as to what they can do to fight back against these data centers, what they're trying to do is they're trying to fight back against American innovation and American development. If they don't live in that area, people should be scrutinizing where this opposition comes from. And we found a money flow that would say the call is not coming from inside the house.
Yeah, Larry, to follow up on that point, by the way, folks, we're speaking with Larry Behrens. He's Director of Communications at an awesome organization called Power the Future, a trade association supporting America's energy future and the American energy worker. Check them out, powerthefuture.com. That's where this report is that Larry's referring to. Billionaire-funded campaign to sabotage America's AI and technology boom. Yeah, Larry, with data centers, the concern should be the same as with any other development, right? People should be concerned about, is this the right location? What's it going to look like? What's it going to sound like? What kind of resources is it going to take? Are they going to support the development and the building and the operation of this on their own? Or are they going to come in here asking for tax credits and abatements? I'm opposed to all of that because most of these data centers are run by large, giant corporations that can actually deliver millions of dollars of property tax relief to various communities. But when you get above and beyond those basic questions that people should, and those basic concerns, and then you see this is so much more than that. Yeah. As you said, it seems like there's this massive orchestrated opposition with some of the same exact talking points popping up all over the country. And then as you have done at Power of the Future, digging deeper to that, and you see It is a spider web network, and some of the money is coming from some of the most nefarious leftist billionaires that are attacking our electoral system, that are attacking other aspects of our energy system, that are attacking issues regarding our immigration system. And I'm talking about the folks like George Soros, Hans-Jörg Wyss, may not be a household name to many, but is to you and I, because these are the guys that are literally outside of America trying to destroy what we're doing inside our borders.
Yeah, and let's put some numbers to that, right? So Hans-Jörg, whose name I often mispronounce, but I don't mispronounce the number, $40 million to groups that are pushing against data centers. And what
this is a Swiss billionaire
who
has put over $40 million into opposing U.S. data and tech?
Correct.
That's kind of odd.
And keep in mind, campaign law says that he can't be putting money behind U.S. candidates. And so this is how he's going to influence the process, right? And so he sends money to groups like the Sierra Club and other groups that we name in our report. And what they do is then they dole out the money. They dole out the money in several different ways. They'll buy Facebook ads. They'll buy Instagram ads. Anyone searches for data center, well, you'll get this convenient little search result that says you should oppose this because they have millions of dollars behind it. And let's just for a moment enjoy the irony of anyone who opposes a data center going online to a social media place and saying, it's like, where do you think your Google Photos are housed? And that's just how it works. And this is the technology that's going to move forward. And the question is, and there's legitimate questions of how it moves forward, but the question of whether it is or isn't going to move forward has been answered. If we aren't going to do this here in the United States, someone is going to do this, probably China. Let's just be honest about it. And then we have to ask, well, then if China's going to do it, what's that going to look like? And it's not going to be, I think, beneficial to the American citizen. And so when you see foreign money coming in, you have to ask yourself, why is someone so invested in stopping it just here in the United States and not across the globe?
You know, you talk about like it happening, you know, if it's not us, it'll probably be China. And what will that look like? You know, you see so many comments online, particularly, you know, we talk about these left billionaires giving to, but there are some on the right that have like this, you know, they don't want the nanny state. And this is the beginning of 1984, where these data centers are keeping track of all information and watching us all that. But I think like, you know, if that's going to happen, wouldn't we rather have the American economy in charge of that instead of the communist Chinese?
Yeah, and I know I've seen the argument, and it's the right argument about concern about Chinese ownership of farmland here in Missouri.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be, you think about intellectual property like AI and Chinese ownership of that, where they can reach into our lives in a whole lot of places. But I get it, folks on the right. I'm proud to be on the right personally. And they would be very hesitant because we're always worried about a big brother type situation and the government, what they can do. To that, I would say you need to continue to scrutinize and also look to President Trump. President Trump has looked at this and said, this is something America needs. This is part of our innovation. He has brought tech leaders to the table to address power concerns and to address privacy concerns and to address a whole bunch of regulatory concerns. And so I'm not saying those questions aren't legitimate. They're absolutely legitimate. However, when you are just having a letter come forth with 230 groups, and when they are made up groups, it's really interesting. 230 groups that just says, let's just have a blanket moratorium like Bernie Sanders has decided to try to do. Then you have to ask yourself, well, that's not even trying to ask questions or trying to learn yourself. That's just saying we want to kneecap America for some unknown reason. We would argue because of the foreign millions flowing in, but to kneecap America against what is the technology that's going to define the next decades.
Yeah, Larry, you made a great point there. Bernie Sanders and some of the most uber leftist progressives are filing federal legislation for national bans on all AI data center tech development. And I want you to comment on that. And also, why do you think this is happening now? Does this have anything to do with the fact that the left has, for now, lost the war on their climate craziness and the Green New Deals and the push for EVs? So are they bait and switching now to this propaganda campaign?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't see a whole lot of BLM riots anymore because they all switched their shirts to the anti-ICE riots, and then they all were wearing the climate shirts. And so the professional protester class just finds the cause du jour, and data centers is a big part of it. It's really funny. They have lost on that. They're not forcing EVs on us anymore because they found the American public will vote you out if you try to force EV mandates on it. We want to be able to choose what we want. And this is what gets me a little bit both on the left and the right with this issue. When you look at data centers, if we truly believe in free enterprise, if the government is not being called on to subsidize it and pick winners and losers in this case, well, then free enterprise should win out. And we want that in America. America. We want to continue to innovate. And you've made the point excellently. Think of every major technology in history that's come along. There are bumps, there are concerns with it, but those get addressed. And we cannot afford to just sit back and let the world move ahead of us on this technology.
We have to continue to lead on AI and tech, or other countries that don't have America's best interests at heart will be happy to do so.
Absolutely. And it always kind of comes back to energy for me, right? When we look at President Trump this week visited China, and you have to look at the two sides there and to say that China is an energy dependent nation. Yeah, they get a lot of coal and they burn a lot of coal, but they have to import a whole lot of oil. They get 5 million barrels, or they used to, through the Strait of Hormuz every day. United States gets our oil from the United States. We get a lot from Canada. We get a lot from Mexico as well. And so we have a North American bent. But if you are not self-sufficient in energy, then you are weak on the geopolitical scale. You are putting your self-reliance in the hands of potentially adversaries. And so it could be very much the same with AI and with technology. If we cede this ground, we will be in a begging position as opposed to a leadership position. And that's not where America belongs.
Well, you talk about these professional protesters and they're moving on their whatever is the cause du jour is, right? I'm feeling that firsthand. I had a particular person decide to file a motion to petition to remove me from office, and they were so proud that they had filed that motion on Earth Day to save Mother Earth from me.
Did they use carbon-free paper?
No, they used a data center to house it on.
Oh, well, the sweet irony.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, Larry, basically, in sum and substance, address the concerns about development, but don't let the foreign leftist billionaires stop development as a whole in the U.S., whether we're talking industrial or technological.
Yeah, scrutinize it as you would anything else. But when the opposition shows up, think of that opposition as speaking the truth, and if it's speaking for you. And if it's not, then it's probably being paid by someone else.
Well stated. That's Larry Behrens. He's Director of Communications for Power the Future. Everything we discussed can be found in their report at powerthefuture.com. Billy, once again, the time went way too fast, and we have lots more to say.
Absolutely. But we'll be back next week for more.
We will indeed. In the meantime, check us out on the Facebook page, Jeffco Patriot Radio, and stay right here. St. Charles Patriot Radio follows this show, so you want to keep it right here for all of your Sunday Fun Day news here at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.